Hello everyone, it's Infinity Gamer here, and what I've decided is to do something a little bit different with this video. So there's a lot of questions coming up in forums and things around the lore of the human sphere, and while everything that's happened previously, there's a lot of resources there's a lot to cover, what I thought was I'd give you I suppose like a straight into N4 version of the lore. Where are we right now? What's happened? What's changed? How have things moved on since Paradiso, and look at what is happening that has inspired the N4 book and how the timeline has shifted to the present day. So if you just want to jump in and just go, well, where are we at right now? This is the perfect video for you. I'm going to be reading out of the core book, which has lore in there. So some of this is going to be canon, and then there's going to be a little bit of around the outside as well. So let's get into it, shall we? Cerberus Rising. We didn't see it coming. We were unable to foresee the real intentions of the EI. Once again, we were caught off guard. As we focused all our efforts on Paradiso and tried to contain the combined army's infiltration on Dawn and Svalheimer, the Shasvasti extended their networks across Human Edge. And even when we exposed them in Neu Bangkok, we were unable to grasp the scope of their operations. The EI always plays for the long term, and it has the technology to do so. A technology whose limits we are unable to understand. And so, we are faced with this conundrum. Concilium is under siege, and the combined army is threatening the heart of the human sphere. We were overconfident in thinking that since we had detected their operations on Dawn and Svalheimer, even if a little too late, we would be able to sniff out any further infiltration attempts. And when we uncovered their cell in Neu Bangkok, we failed to recognise the scale of their operations. We patrolled the solar, concilium, and human edge systems, and instead of getting serious about hunting down humanity's greatest enemies, we resumed our petty squabbles. As we did not detect anything of real consequence, just a few isolated cells, we congratulated ourselves, believing that we had dismantled their operation. And it didn't even cross our minds that maybe we should keep looking harder. Though, in fact, it did cross the minds of a few amongst us. Some of us raised our voices, calling for more patrols, for closer collaboration, for more resources. But the noise of economic disputes, of border conflicts, of regional crises, silenced our voices. Totally oblivious, we rejoiced over our strategic excellence, having destroyed the Acheron jump gate thanks to Operation Defiance, which limited the arrival of combined army troops to Paradiso, having isolated an Onyx contact force at Dawn, and constantly hunting down the cells on Svalheimer. But we didn't want to admit that we couldn't regain more ground from Paradiso, that we even lost the terminus station of the Jazira space elevator, and that we couldn't force the Onyx out of the Ariadne exclusion zone on Nova Chimera on Dawn. We didn't want to realise that we weren't winning. In the meantime, those Shasvasti infiltration teams that our patrols failed to detect gained access to the Concilium system. There, in its outer sector, far from prying eyes, they set up a quantum beacon that allowed them to open a wormhole towards one of the border systems of the hegemony. Unnoticed, a wormhole which has been given the identification code Cerberus popped up in our rear, and, equally unnoticed, it began to spew out ship after ship of the combined army. A first wave of ships that headed at full speed towards Concilium Primer, and that the orbital defense system could not contain due to the malfunctioning of many of their batteries. A malfunction caused by the sabotage actions of Shasvasti agents and grief operators who had infiltrated these maximum security facilities. This first wave of ships struck Concilium Primer like a hammer, destroying the section of the Concilium Nova 2 orbital ring over Helheim. The overburdened planetary defense forces and Bureau Aegis had thousands of victims to rescue, so they neglected the defense against the incursion in the process, which was obviously part of the EI's plan. Moreover, choosing the Antarctic continent to Concilium Primer as the site for their beachhead was not accidental either. Due to the planetary magnetic fields, there is no easier access point to a planet for a pilot than its poles, and in a time of war, any advantage is always welcome. Furthermore, though there were a few Bureau Aegis bases in Helheim, most of them were small in size and not designed as strongholds or as regiment headquarters. This fact, coupled with the absence of infrastructures and the extreme weather, would make it impossible for a rapid reaction force to attack the enemy raiders soon after they landed, when they are most vulnerable. And as it turned out, Bureau Aegis lacked the necessary forces to get to the aliens and drive them out of Helheim. Once again, our lack of foresight was our worst enemy. Then, the combined army forces began to spread out eastwards from the Nastrond region in the southwest towards the coast, with their sights set on Thok, the continent's capital. This city might have been lost had it not been for a series of brutal storms that raged unexpectedly over Helheim, preventing the advance of the alien troops, who focused on fortifying their landing point. This fortuitous circumstance afforded us a respite that allowed us to send emergency contingents to assist the planetary defence forces and Bureau Aegis. We established a front line, evacuated the scientific research stations, and fortified our rear, turning Thok into the headquarters of our allied forces. We organised a meeting in the city of Spandau Beta on Concilium Prima to structure what was to be the Concilium Coordinated Command, only to be viciously attacked by Shasvasti agents who had infiltrated the diplomatic delegations. Everyone knows about the dirty bomb that these aliens detonated, and that has forced us to isolate Spandau Beta, a city that has been quarantined because it is still contaminated, and also because everyone in there is under suspicion of being a Shasvasti agent. A city has become the hunting ground for both sides' search and destroy units. The orbit above Helheim has also become a battle zone, the setting for ambushes amidst the debris of Concilium Nova 2 ring, and fierce fighting for the control of the devastated Zanahari station. But the battle is not limited to orbit, as it stretches across the vacuum of the whole system. We must stop enemy ships from reaching Concilium Prima. We must prevent them from harassing the prospecting teams around the Brisingamen asteroid belt. We must fight them at the artillery platform barrier of the CERT monitoring system. We mustn't let the enemy grow strong at the Arcanar outer asteroid belt. Though our crucial duty is to fight and contain them at Cerberus itself so that they can't even access the system, we must put in place an airtight naval blockade that the enemy is not able to breach. This must be a battle fought primarily in space, where naval strategy takes precedence. In order to isolate the invading forces in Helheim, keeping the combats and the enemy as far away as possible from the planet and the other inhabited areas of the system. However, a more naval approach also requires a greater commitment from us, from the Concilium Coordinated Command. We can't let O12 stand alone, because it won't be able to contain the alien swarm on its own. Now, more than ever, we must stand truly united and vigilant. It's time for us to learn from the mistakes of the past that led us to this situation, and present a truly common front without any cracks, standing together in solidarity. We must build an impenetrable wall of trust in order to protect Concilium. And for this, we need ships and boarding parties, the best you have. Do not keep them in reserve. You must deploy them now, because tomorrow it may be too late for those forces to make a difference. You have heard the reports of the crew of the Defiance, what they saw on the other side, what lies in wait in the domains of the EI. If Cerberus is completely opened, there will be such an avalanche of enemy ships that the fall of Concilium will be inevitable, and our enemy will swarm throughout the human sphere, subjugating everyone in its path and destroying those that it cannot subjugate. Concilium is the key to the rest of the human sphere, and its defense must be our greatest concern. This is something that must be done because all human lives depend on it. That is a speech from Saladin, the O12 liaison officer, in a meeting with the Concilium Coordinated Command. That does give you a good sense as to where things are at. O12's home planet, Concilium Prima, is under attack, and it also explains to me the sudden shift that Corvus Belli have given towards space commands. We have Cosmoflot coming for Ariadne, which is originally odd for me because Ariadne are not known for being the most technologically advanced out of the lot. So interesting when N4 was being launched and Cosmoflot was teased, and now that we see some profiles we kind of understand that O12 have given a mandate across the human sphere to support in that space resistance of the combined army. And Ariadne are getting Cosmoflot to support that, and obviously O12 have had Starmada released, which is their space naval teams. Be interesting to see if more get kind of spacey, navally things, but now you can kind of see why. So that gives us a sense. Now, one of the things that I like in that is that there's obviously mention of Defiance. So those of you that have Defiance and are playing it, you can see the story maybe from another angle. But that is where we are at right now. Concilium Prima is under attack. Paradiso was a lost cause, it seems. It seems as though we kind of had thought that we did very well at Paradiso, but in reality couldn't actually regain ground from what the combined army took, and losing the terminus station of the space elevator. So there's a couple of other interesting elements here within the core book. I'm not going to read lots of it verbatim because you need a reason to buy this. It's very good. There's lots of stories in here. There's even like little snippets from little stories that lead up to what I've just read you. So I'm going to read out one of the stories. It doesn't seem to be from any of the ITS season packs, so might be new for some people. But this is an extract from the report of Carlos Hornoy, technician analyst at Midnight Sun, Black Hand Special Intelligence Analyst Group. Unfortunately, mistrust and the usual short-sightedness of the great powers would hinder the effectiveness of this vigilance operation. Instead of deploying a solid net that would completely comb both systems, vindictive attitudes or simple greed for the other nation's resources defeated the purpose of said patrols, which ended up treating any foreign vessel they crossed paths with as the target for opportunity, invoking unsubstantiated suspicions of collusion with the aliens. This precipitated the worst fear of Bureau Agist analysis, that the combined army would succeed in their operation of infiltrating technology, exploiting the holes in the stakeout vigilance network. The EI's target system was eventually revealed to be Concilium. There, in the outer rim of the system, far from the eye of the CERT armed surveillance system, an Onyx operative team established a hidden base, assembling the colossal artifact they had managed to smuggle in, piece by piece, from Human Edge. It was a sophisticated voodoo-tech device, probably based on the principle of quantum entanglement. With it, the combined army engineers managed to detect and activate a wormhole that connected the Concilium system with a system close to the outer edge of the Hegemony's domain. This was the birth of the Cerberus Gate, humanity's nightmare. The rest is recent history. Since Cerberus, a gate with the same crossing problem that the Archeron Gate had in Paradiso, the combined army marched on Concilium Prima. After launching a surprise attack on the CERT surveillance system, the bulk of the fleet rushed to the planet's orbital defences, partially destroying the Nova 2 ring and establishing a beachhead on Helheim. We cannot fool ourselves into thinking that the Cerberus crisis is a local conflict. It threatens the human sphere as a whole. It's clear that measures such as the creation of the Concilium Coordinated Command are not enough. It is no exaggeration to say that the very fate of humankind is at stake here. Should Concilium fall, the rest of the systems will fall not long thereafter, spelling the end of freedom and independence for the human race. Hopefully that's helped. You kind of understand where we're at right now, what we're fighting for, and what's going on. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Obviously give this video a like to show you if you did enjoy it, and if you want to see a bit more lore stuff or narrative stuff coming out of this channel in the future. Really do appreciate your support. Thank you so much for that, and I'll be back soon with another video.